Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Hello. Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. I am Jim Vinosky, and I'm glad to be with you. Also glad to be joined today by Ben Findlay. He's the founder and CEO of Machine Compare over in the UK. Welcome, Ben.
Hey, Jim. How you doing? Thank you
I'm
very
good.
much
How
for
are
having
you?
me.
Yeah, good to see you again.
Good. Yeah. It's always So we'll. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, we can keep it within the time frame because I think our chats are quite epic. So let's.
So we should explain that. Ben and I've talked a few times before, and our last discussion I think went over 2 hours.
Something like that. My team. That was something we were doing. My team definitely are earning their money on the editing from that one. So,
yes, we promise to our listeners we will not go that long today. We'll cut out the recording and then we'll continue to chat once we've covered the stuff. But
we'll get rid of all the dirty jokes. We'll keep them
all
clean.
That's right. But yeah, really glad to have you here, Ben. So I've written about Ben at Forbes and Machine Compare, and for someone like me who's 3 decades plus in manufacturing. Anyone like me has seen the whole spare parts conundrum of, having a whole room full of stuff sitting there, but then not having what you need when you need it, having to go scramble for things like obsolete parts and all that. And you've got solutions for all of that.
We hope we do.
I know you do.
We have a lot of stock. Yeah. So do you want me to give you a brief overview of what we do, and then that's probably for
quick overview of what Machine Compare is, and then one thing I definitely want to hear is your background that kind of got you here.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So briefly, Machine Compare, we launched a marketplace this year for industrial spare parts. The main focus of this, or the initial focus, was what we call dead stock spare parts that you manufacturers. So manufacturing plants. So they're unused. Just gathering dust. They've got no use to the company that they're in. They might be overstocked, they might be obsolete, they might be surplus to requirement. And we effectively thought, well, there's value in these parts, and there's other people that need them, because we've all been in that position. In my background in manufacturing, where you need a part, you can't find it, it's obsolete, you're scrambling around. So we thought, well, why don't we just expand everybody's storeroom a little bit and let them buy from each other, and they're buying off people just like them. And that was the theory behind it. We thought that's quite a simple concept, and then we realized just how complicated it was to implement.
It is a simple concept, right? It's just the execution that gets a little messy.
That's it. So I think we're there. I think we're nearly there with it now, and it's working, and that's great. So that's fundamentally the idea. So I can touch on my background if you want.
So what, you obviously have some time yourself in manufacturing that led you to this. So let's talk about that a little bit.
So basically, I started my career nearly 20 years ago, and I went into I started off actually in fleet management software for the motor trade, and I was selling tracking systems, and then I finished that B2B, and I joined the corrugated sector. I actually my father used to do what I did. He got cancer, and he just said, "Look, you're in between jobs. Do you want to come and fill a gap for me?" He said, "You'll get to travel, and you might make a little bit of money, and it might be something that you're interested in." He said, "It'll just fill some time in between, maybe if you want to do something else." And so that's what I started doing, and I did that for 20 years. So that was a very long gap. And
so I know a little something about that from my packaging background. So you're working with big machines, big systems, running, I'm sure 24/7. So you get into those times when a machine goes down and it's got to be running and you need a part. So
I mean, for us, it was even more pressing. So we would be, my specialty was, I focused on one machine. I thought, well, let me have the biggest and the ugliest one that I can deal with, and that was the corrugator, right? Because it's the one that nobody wanted to touch, because they were like, no, it's too big. So it was 3 stories high, 127 meters long. And what used to happen is, when these big multinational manufacturers used to buy a new machine, I'd get the phone call, could you come and prepare for sale, market, sell, project manage that machine leaving the factory? And then I'd get the contracts about 50% of the time I'd get the installation contract as well. So we'd work on that kind of turnkey basis. That's where we found, first of all, the concept was when I used to sell that machine, it was a 3-month process from start to finish. You know, from when that machine had been sold to dismantling to the machine leaving, that was 3 months. And, you know, it's a full team, 36 containers, 2 flat racks. That was kind of the average. When the last 2 containers were on the floor, I generally have the same day's work. And this is where it came from, is that I'd inevitably fly to wherever the machine was. Okay, it's all loaded up, last 2 are on the floor, and I'd have my list of spare parts and I'd have my asset register. Asset register's easy because it's just the big lumps. You just look at the floor and say, is it clean? Yes. Asset's gone. List of spare parts is a bit more complicated because you generally have them grouped up with the machine. Some are in the container, and you go through that, and then you say, right, now I need to look in the stores. And you go into the stores and you're looking for anything that applies to that machine. And bear in mind, people have made an investment of around $7 million for this kind of machine used. That's the total investment, at least. So you're looking at this and you're saying, well, I need to pull everything off the shelf that is with that machine. And there's stuff that's on your list, and there was always lots of stuff that was on nobody's list because that machine's been in the factory for 10, 15 years. So it's just accumulated, and you're going, just from experience, saying that belongs to the machine, that belongs to the machine. And then you're also looking in everywhere in the stores because it could have been stuffed at the back because John, who worked in the factory 10 years ago and he hasn't been there since. That's where he liked to hide stuff. And the next guy came in and he wanted stuff on a different shelf. And you just...
And so, you know, everyone out there in manufacturing now is just, shaking their heads because they've all lived through that.
100%. And you just, and what you find is you're finding things that shouldn't be there. So you're going, oh, well, okay, there's your bearings rack. Did you know that you had a rack in the back over here that's gathering dust? And it's definitely not been looked at, but there's definitely bearings on there that are probably the same. And then you've got things in there where you understand the mix of machines through experience, and you understand turnover of spare parts. So you'll see things like servo motors on the shelf, and you'll go, I know that they use 2 of those a year, if that. But there's 10 of them on the shelf. Why are there 10 on the shelf? And it's and a lot of it comes down to consignment stock. It comes down to the Boy Scout mentality. I always say that engineers are the biggest bastions of circular economy and sustainability that there are, because they hate throwing things away, and they'll always use anything that's there for a multitude of applications that should be useful, right? So that concept wasn't difficult. We basically uncovered lots of spares, and that's where the journey started. And you'd always have the thing of installation of like, where's this, Ben? And because the engineers would phone me up, Ben, can you get hold of this spare because I can't get the machine going without you go. Right, okay. And then you start the ring around. So yeah, it wasn't difficult. We actually approached a group that I used to agent for. I can't mention them on
no
camera,
problem.
But and we approached them and said, listen, we think you have a lot of unused spare parts within your group. They basically said, Ben, we like you, but we're not going to do the work on this. We know that you're right, but it's down to you and your brother if you want to do this job. You basically, go away, and if you find something, we'll give you an order. So we were like, okay, fine. So what we ended up doing was phoning nearly 400 sites globally. And we spoke with nearly every single engineering manager within this particular group, and we effectively hassled them and said, update your SAP system. It was that kind of a job. Not fun. Took us quite a few months, and then nothing happened for a while. And then eventually they said, listen, we'd like a meeting with you at the head office. So I said, fine, we'll go to the head office. And I actually didn't take it that seriously because I booked it on a Friday, and I managed to expense the journey. So I took my wife and kids because where it was, we have really good friends, right? So I said, okay. I said to my wife, listen, I've managed to get the journey on expenses, but I can't, I've got to do this meeting. It's going to be an hour, but nothing's coming of this. Like, forget this, She was like, okay, fair enough. And I walked into this meeting, and they sat me down and they said, look, you've done a really good job. We think you've potentially found 100 million euros worth of spare parts within our group. And you're sitting there and you're like, this is insane. And they said, look, can you put them on the website? Because at the time we had a comparison site for industrial machinery. That was the obvious thing that we were doing with machines. We said, market's changing. Let's come out with a digital product.
Right.
Let's see if the market's ready for a digital product. My brother's background was, he was a Durham MBA, and he was quite senior at a holiday comparison website called the travelsupermarket.com. So with machinery and that aspect, that's kind of where we got the holiday comparison machine compare. That's where we got that from.
Yes.
But this was like, wow, this is the opportunity to scale. And it's a hard conversation because you're sat there and you're doing your job like 60% of the time, trying to get a new business off the ground 40% of the time, and looking for an opportunity. And you're also strapped for cash because you're spread too thinly everywhere, right? So you're trying to get this thing going, and you sit down, it's like 100 million euros. And I had to sit there and say, yeah, I can't do anything with this. It's too big, right? So it's like winning the lottery, and you're going, I can't cash this ticket in. I said, but if you put this in writing, we can get investors on board. Okay, so that's kind of where the journey started. We left with that. We found investors, got to that final stage of investment, which was April 2019. Just about to sign the contract on that, and my brother went to the doctors because he was feeling a bit tired. His symptom was he's tired. Doctors told him he had cancer, and he died within 2 weeks of the diagnosis. So we had to put everything on hold at that point. I can elaborate on that as well, because there is a story about medical cannabis that goes with that. So we were trying to get him to treatment. They refused him everything. He was 36 years old, fit and healthy. And we found somebody that said, look, we can give him immunotherapy, but he needs his strength up. Don't let him have morphine, but find an alternative pain reliever, which I said, okay, look, are we talking about what I think we're talking about? He said, yeah. In the UK, it's illegal, like massively illegal. So within a day, I found myself in an industrial grow. I was buying 7 grams worth of cannabis, medical cannabis, taking it home and turning it into oil, which is what my brother was having instead of morphine. Unfortunately, it didn't work. He died, but he didn't have morphine till the day he died. And I was the first person to publicly come out and say that I'd done this. It carries a 16-year prison sentence. So I was the first one to publicly face in the papers. I ended up being on the news and things like this, which was quite exciting. And what we managed to get off the back of that was we managed to get it pushed through as a small part, because this was already a movement that was going on. But we were a small part of the story that managed to get clinical trials put through in the UK for using cannabis as a pain reliever with cancer patients. So I'm quite, out of everything I've done, I'm actually quite proud of that. I'm really proud of that, because I think that's something that just genuinely helped people. Do you know what I mean? So that was...
It is, yeah. And obviously, I mean, you're probably aware of how much progress has been made here in the US as well. What's interesting to me as part of this story is when that hit, and I know we've talked about this before, but again, I can't say how sorry I am. I've lost siblings as well, and I know what you've been through. But having gone through what you did and taken the action you did can only have then kind of helped you in this ginormous task that you had facing you after you recovered from all that with the business.
Yeah, I mean, also I'm a big believer in therapy. So when my brother died, I needed a lot of therapy to get my straightened out. So I think one thing that I'm good at is asking for help when I need it.
Yes, good.
I think it's a key thing is that when he died, I just was overwhelmed, and I functioned for about 2 months, and then I went, no, there's something seriously wrong here, and I need to address it. So I actually bit that bullet, went for therapy, paid, and it was the best decision that I ever made, and that actually has helped me going forward for the rest of my life. So I think that's probably the key thing. And like you say, it was everybody. You don't get to a certain age without going through.
That's right.
Without going through something. And I think it was just our turn. But the good thing is I got myself together and then managed to get the investment. Investors were great. They stuck with us all the way. And I managed to get the investment in January 2020 to build this e-commerce platform for industrial spare parts. The thing is as soon as we found that one company, we knew they had it. We knew everybody had it, right? Because that's everywhere. So since
you start doing the math.
Yeah, man. And we have everybody now. We have like Nestle, AB and Bev. We have Refresco Group on. DS Smith are amazing. We do a lot with DS Smith. They're hands down one of the best companies we work with. Smurfit Kappa. We have and the list keeps going on,
Well, right. You've got some huge names there, but you're really barely scratching the surface. And I know you've looked at the big picture. Obviously, you had one company, you're talking about 100+ million euros. What are we talking about globally that the opportunity here is?
It's really hard to put a number on it, but when we start doing
but I'm going to make you do that anyway.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm going to get there, so I like to explain how we do it. With the customer sets that we've got, and bear in mind what we have on the site is a fraction of the stock that they have, because we also have a big obstacle in relation to data cleansing and having good quality data. We estimate there's at least a 5 billion euro market for this, and that's globally at least, and that's a conservative number to put on it.
I believe it. Yeah.
The big obstacle that you have is it's how this data is organized, because it's a data game, right? So you can have spare parts in your plant and you have them categorized under a material code. So I'm going to start getting like really geeky now, and this might switch some people off. Okay. So they're all in your accounts ledger as the material code. They're written down. It's not difficult to find them. It's what's not moved for 2 years, what's been depreciated, not moved, because if it's used, it should disappear off the books, right? But it's still there, even if it has a nominal value. The big thing is that we take that file, and that file has been comprised of years of people putting those things in the system. Right. And the original purchase records are gone. There's no receipts because it was before digitalization on some of the stock. You also have that human element where Gary or John in engineering has put this in as a bearing, and you go, that's great, it's definitely a bearing. You know what that bearing is. But then we get that file, and we have like maximum we get from the customers is maybe 8-9 attributes, and some of them might be as basic as bearing. And our job then is to take those attributes, try and find something on that line that can identify it. So that will be a brand name, it might be SKF, it might be FAG, it might be something else. And then we'll look for an MPN number. It might be a partial machine part number, it might be a match, and we'll try and do something to try and identify. We then have to take those 8-9 attributes. We need to add about 200 to that job. So that's just to identify exactly what that is, with as much detail so that a purchasing decision can be made, because that bearing has it. Is it a sealed bearing? Is it a roller bearing? Is it a radial bearing? What kind of, is it a deep groove bearing? What kind of bearing is that? It can be a lot of them. Then you have what's the inside diameter, what's the outside diameter, what are the tolerances, what's the steel type. So there's so much there where people need to make a decision based on that. And then once we get that, then we have to optimize it for Google. We have to try and sell it. So that whole element of recirculating that product, actually the big work starts when we get that list. The easy bit is once you finish doing all that work to try and sell it, because you should be really competitively priced. Instant availability in that aspect is, is not too difficult, but the difficult bit is getting the stock. So we'll get lists from customers that the average is 5% of their lists are clean. Okay, so you can imagine you get a list, 5% of it, just on what they send us, is sellable. 95% of it is horrific. We are kind of getting those lists now to 21% clean, and 50% on top of that 21% of identifiable. So we still have to do work too. So that's the job is, and then we also have the element which is just nothing. We can't do anything with it, and it's probably scrap. So that's our job. That's what that's what we're doing. And there's loads of it. There's loads of it everywhere,
Well, so for the people who might be listening who aren't into manufacturing, if you've ever bought spare parts for one of your appliances, you think about what you went through just finding the right make and model, the right piece, to make sure that if you're trying to fix this yourself, you have what needs to go in there and not something different. Now you think about it from the supply end, you've got to know all the details of each item and be able to communicate that so people who are looking for things can be confident they're getting the right spare part.
100%. And if you have a vacuum cleaner or a dishwasher and you don't have the book,
right,
it's how do you identify the bearing that you need or the part that you need? It's very, very difficult. So the system itself, what we have to build is profiling, and that's what the job actually is. But once I mean, we've cracked a big part of this. So tier one OEMs, we nailed it down, like Siemens, Allen Bradley, ABB, no problem for us whatsoever.
Yeah.
Sector specific is more of a job. But once we've nailed this down, this then becomes really valuable. So some of the companies we're working with, we're already starting that conversation of identifying scrap, because there's definitely scrap. Okay, so it's saying, look, it's not going to sell, so this is scrap. We're now starting that next stage of trying to sell the scrap for them so that they get good value, because we can identify it quite cleanly. This is what the scrap is, and maybe we have some value here. But also when they start looking about interplant transfers as well. So this is groups. So groups might say, we don't want to sell our products, but we want to move them from site to site.
Yeah, within a given company.
Yeah, and you'll have sites supply chain solution system software that comes in and can identify again based on a material code, but it won't be enough for that plant manager to buy from that plant manager, because again, if he goes, well, it just says bearing. What kind of bearing is it? What is it? You know, or it just says, you know, it's just Siemens with a part number. Okay, well, what is it? So what we're hoping, and we're nearly there actually, this will be for next year, is that we can then start to do work for companies as well to help them profile that stock. So there's a lot of opportunity here about what we're doing. And then the other flip side as well is we want new products on the site as well, because our big basis is around sustainability. We do want to be that Amazon. We do want to be that Amazon. If you need a part, you come to us. We'll always promote. So we're trying to inform choice, and that should inspire the right action. Okay, so the big thing is sustainability is at the tip of everybody's tongue. Okay, but there's different motivations to be sustainable. We think that on an ethical level, these groups and everybody wants to buy better. You know, they want to buy the right thing. Engineering managers just need to buy the right thing at the right time, because they might have a stock out, they might have a breakdown. They're looking for a very specific part. Okay, so it's sustainable for them to keep their machine running. That's actually the most sustainable option, whether they buy a new part or a used part. What we have to do is incentivize them to buy the unused spare part. So that should be done based on price and availability. So price and lead time, that's it. Because like I said, engineers are the most sustainable people on the planet. They try and make use of everything, right? They don't have to throw anything away. But they also have a culture of risk, because they also realize if they put something that's bad quality on their machine and it breaks, they then have more work to do to get it right. So they're the ones getting called in the middle of the night on the weekend. So there's a personal investment in getting it right the first time. You know, when I think back to learning about you and writing about this for Forbes, the immediate thing for me, which I've touched on before, is those of us in industry have been there, where we're the ones needing the part and we're staying up all hours to get something fixed, and you're solving that problem. But you just touched on another piece, and I want to expand on it, and that is the whole sustainability piece. So you know, to kind of spell that out, at one of the plants I worked at, we went through a storeroom cleanup, getting rid of things that we had on the shelves for machines we didn't have anymore. For example, we wound up with 5 pallets stacked with spare parts. They all went to the landfill because we had no outlet back then. There's no outlet. Also, you start to have to scrap it properly. You have to also detail it. So you have to have the details of what it is. It's things like bearings can have contamination if they have oil in. So if you have enough of them, scrap companies can deal with it. But if you only have 2 or 3, that goes to a hole in the ground. E-waste is a big one as well. Electrical waste is huge. And you have things at the minute where it's actually becoming more valuable to recycle and reuse that e-waste, because you've got semiconductor crisis, you've got shortages happening, you've got supply chain issues, disruption with COVID. In the UK, we have a great thing called Brexit, you know, all these things where, and so, there's a whole thing about waste, and it's clearly identifying that waste and recirculating it. And it's you've got other things happening at the minute with ESG. So ESG, you know about, I think your listeners are probably very well informed.
I think most of them are aware.
So if they're looking at they're looking at grading companies based on ESG scores, and one of the objectives is about waste. They're graded on waste, and it's reduction of waste to landfill, it's reduction of CO2, it's that net zero, that net carbon emissions, zero emissions. Most of these big groups have an objective by 2030 to be zero waste, objective. So
Sure.
nothing to landfill by 2030. We fill that gap because a lot of this stuff will end up in landfill. It's not recyclable. And it's because part of it is that it's not organized.
Right.
The second part of it, there's never been an outlet. So what do? Before we've come along, there's no outlet. There's great work going on in identifying it, but everybody's gone, we just need to find out what it is. And then nobody that I'm aware of until we've come along has gone, well, yeah, now you've identified what it is. Now let's try and do something with it. Okay.
Right. You'll see the occasional, usually high value item, put on eBay. And I've bought spare parts on eBay, but that's it's not even touching the surface of what's out there, because that takes so much individual work to make happen.
Also,
so you're offering that wholesale solution where if I had those 5 pallets today, I could list the whole kit and caboodle on your site, right?
100%. And the second thing with eBay is it becomes, you have to do an awful lot of work to get that product up to scratch to sell it. You might not have that information. If you have a list of $300,000, $400,000 worth of stuff, do you really have enough information to be able to sell that on eBay? You don't. There's a huge amount of work that goes into it. And we're the ones that are building that system in order to help facilitate that. That's kind of the big job. The other side of doing it on stuff that's a B2C site like eBay and those consumer sites is a level of compliance as well. The biggest buyers are the biggest sellers. They're the groups, right? But they also need to make sure that they're not buying stolen goods. Right. That there's a level of integrity to what's being bought and sold, that those goods are in good order, that they're checked before they leave and all the rest of it. It's difficult for companies to instill that. So a pure B2B platform like us, we'll run people through compliance. We'll do checks on people. We can't deal with you on certain levels. We have to comply to federal law in the States. We have to file our tax returns locally. There's a lot where we have to be set up to do this in a way that facilitates safe trading and just sits in line with what the groups and it, it takes the fun out of it, because it's all the administration, but then that compliance is important, because how are these companies supposed to prove that it doesn't end up in landfill? And also there's also the added benefits that if they're supplying the local economy with cheap, immediately available spare parts, there's also a social impact on that. It reduces costs for small manufacturers in order to keep their machines going. And that should preserve jobs.
And it's on both sides. So you're reducing the buyer's costs and you're getting something back for something that otherwise would have been scrapped.
100%. And if you're having to buy new spare parts, which you will, the sale of the old spare parts should subsidize that as well. It's also pure profit. So if you're an investor,
that's right,
and if you've got shares in a company, there's hidden profit in those companies. And likewise, if you're trying to sell your business and you're in manufacturing, well, why don't we start to do some kind of assessment on the spare parts value? Because most of that, that's just that's rounding. For a lot of people, it's rounding. But say you've got $400,000 sat there in stock and it's written off. That's not rounding. If you're trying to sell your business, hey, we just found some more value and the valuation creeps up, so
absolutely.
There's all sorts of elements that fall around the data of where we can get to,
Well, and that's what became so cool about getting into this and learning about machine compare for me, was peeling that onion. And, there was that immediate benefit that slapped me in the face, but then it's like, oh, and this and this and this, you just keep uncovering the pluses
also
to it.
Convenience as well, because I've had it before where we've had machines and the manufacturers will be in a different time zone. So we have a problem now. I have to wait 24 hours before I elicit a response about whether that stock is available. A lot of manufacturers have not joined the e-commerce revolution yet. It's actually
especially at the plant level.
And it's because their focus is on machines and all the rest of it. So it's like
making their stuff.
Let's make it easy. You need that part. It's the middle of the night. That guy's asleep. It's definitely there. We've checked it. Order it, buy it, pay for the delivery. When he wakes up in the morning, all he's got to do is print off the shipping label and have it ready, and somebody will collect it, be with you the next day. It kind of takes that element. You're not having that lag, and you can track the progress, and you can kind of then helps you project manage any problems that are going on, but also if you're trying to do maintenance and plan maintenance and things like that, you can schedule it all. It's quicker. You don't have to phone up, because I've had it like, even, I get calls from some of my old customers. Ben, can you find these parts, or can you give me the number for the manufacturer? And it's calling all these different people, and they don't want to do it in their personal life. They have apps. You have apps for everybody. Even my dad's 80 years old. He uses Amazon, right? So, it's crossed that generational bridge, and that's in everybody's personal life. So B2B has a lag. So why don't we fill that space? Why don't we fill that space?
Definitely. So talk a little bit more about how the marketplace itself works. So you've touched on some of the elements, but if I'm a buyer and I'm going out there to find a part, what are the process steps there?
So there's if you go on the physical site, it looks exactly like an e-commerce site. So you would use search, you might browse by category. Most people generally know what they're looking for, so they'll just put it in the search bar, hit search, and then the results will come up. The point about our site is we don't sell anything that's not in stock. If it's on the site, one of the rules is it has to be in stock. So the other thing that you can do, we just released a feature a few weeks ago called the BOM tool, bill of materials tool. So what that allows you to do, because it could be quite time consuming looking for each individual parts, and we also have a limited stock. So I don't want to say we have everything. I mean, we have tens of millions of dollars worth of stuff, right? But we don't have everything. So what we've made it, we try to make it easy, is that you can upload a spreadsheet, and you can save that spreadsheet of all the parts that you might buy on a regular basis. And what we're saying to people is, look, we have a price match promise where we should be 25% cheaper than anywhere in the market. Okay, if it's an unused product, it should always be cheaper. That's the incentive for buying it. Above sustainability and above this great movement that we're trying to do, it should be cheaper. Run the BOM tool. It'll take you 3 minutes instead of an hour, maybe not even 3 minutes, and it will tell you everything that we have in stock that matches that spreadsheet. You just need to put the MPN numbers on there, the quantity that you want, and it will just bring up what's there. That then allows you to easily purchase that. It can get shipped in bulk to you, and you don't have to worry about it. It's there within a week, or within the next day. It depends what the delivery, what the delivery is,
what you need,
So yes, it's fundamentally how it works, man. And like everybody listening to this should definitely go on the site and use it, and spend lots of money, and give me your feedback, and that would be great.
I definitely wanted to hit that because we've been talking kind of in depth about the manufacturing world, but anyone who's used Amazon is going to be familiar with what they need to do here.
Yeah, it should be fairly counterintuitive. Yeah. It should just be go on, find the part, and buy and check out, and that's it. And also,
just like any other.
If you're buying, you will have this stock. Although I mentioned a lot of big names, I don't want to make it sound prohibitory to small suppliers. If you have like $10,000 worth of stock, if you have $1,000, if you have like 5 items to sell, put them on the site. We've just started introducing fees on the site, so that's actually coming in the next couple of weeks, and that's basically down to the level of work that we have to do in regards to cleaning the data to get it ready for sale. Because I can't stress to you I have quite a few grey hairs on the site. It's probably generally from that, right? That is actually quite a difficult. So we will bring in charges for that, but if it's reflective of the volume that you have. If you have $250,000 worth of parts, it's going to cost you like $500 to sort that out, to sell it and release that. You're going to pay it, right? Because you can't sell it if you don't do that job. Okay, so that's we naively thought the customers might be better organized.
Wait, you said you were in manufacturing?
Yeah, I know, but then we got it, and we're like, okay guys, you're doing your best here, but we really need to step in, and wow.
I think anyone out there listening who's been part of a startup, who's an entrepreneur, would recognize that story about the unforeseen elements of building the business.
Well, there's a great philosopher called Mike Tyson, and he says everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And that is pretty much it. You go, this is what I'm going to do, and then something hits you, and you go, okay, I didn't see that one coming. I'm going to have to just sidestep and recenter and move. But to be honest, Jim, we're there now. It's flying. We're making sales every day. traffic's
awesome.
increasing.
Yeah.
It's starting to really, it's all a positive curve. Like I said to you, we're about to get another level of investment into that, make it even better.
Yeah.
And that shows that there's real scope in the market here. And also, if you start reading people's sustainability reports now, you've got great organizations like Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and really encouraging circularity. And you'll start to see more if you geek out and you read sustainability reports from these big companies, that spare parts are now starting to feature. I like to think we've helped drive that a little bit, because I think it shows it's achievable. It is achievable.
I definitely think you have. I mean, the headline of my article was that you guys are making the world every manufacturer's spare parts supply room, right?
100. I can't thank you enough for the article.
No, I'm glad to do it. What I do is tell the cool stories of manufacturing, and this is one of the coolest right now.
Oh, I really appreciate it. It's a big compliment, but no, it's amazing. The article was really flattering and it was fantastic. And it actually, for when we did the launch, we built a whole launch. We built a whole launch campaign based off the back of that article. That's what dropped first. And it was just, it opened a lot of doors for us.
Good.
So it was, it was fantastic. So if anybody has a great manufacturing story, Jim is your man, because the exposure you get, and it's not the exposure, it was just really well written, and it made a big difference for us. It really did.
And part of, and I've talked about this in other forums, part of the challenge with manufacturing, and especially now with difficulties in landing people to work in manufacturing, is we've been our own worst marketers. We talk about how dirty and difficult it is, when we don't talk about, man, this is so cool. We do cool things and we make cool stuff day in, day out.
It is really cool. I mean, I was drawn to manufacturing because I just like to see big lumps of steel making fantastic product.
Absolutely.
I was that guy. It was like, well, you could sell lots of the small things. I'm like, no, I don't want the small things. That big thing looks great. Like, what is that? How does that work? And you're like, wow. I genuinely, it's been a long time because of COVID since I've been in a factory, and I just love it. I'm looking forward to when we're getting around it. I love being around machinery. It genuinely excites me. I mean, I'm not in that environment anymore because we're a tech company, but I really like it all. I like all the bits. And when I speak to the customers now, it's like, what do you use it for? What does that process? Can you send me some pictures? Can we have a meeting in the factory? And they're like, no, we can't have a meeting in the factory because of COVID. I'm like, okay, well, when it ends, can we have a meeting in the factory? And especially pushing that with the brewers.
Absolutely. Okay, so you've talked about you're there now. You're where you wanted to be when you first came up with the whole concept. So now you're looking out at the future. What's on the horizon? What's coming that might be new or different?
Yeah, so future's big, and again, we, like I said, initial short-term plan is we're sorting out the issues to do with data with these big companies, and that's working, that's on track. What we're now starting to try and expand into is also to offer new spare parts as well. So there's a big opportunity for small manufacturers of machines who might not have the budget or the know-how to build an e-com solution to start to list their products on our site. So that's going to be the next drive, is we're going to start to try and onboard them. And we're going to be engaging more manufacturers in this conversation about circularity as well, because they all have the same issue. So we're going to become like Amazon. After that, we start to look at fulfillment. We start to look at other really cool stuff. Like, we're going to start to track spare parts spend over time. We're going to start to try and assess certain levels of obsolescence that are still in demand. Because one thing that we really are passionate about is there's a big movement in the UK. I don't know if it's in the US as well, which is the right to repair.
Heck yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's really sustainable to keep old things still moving in the market. The carbon emitted to build a new product is huge, and if you can keep those old ones moving, it's better. And also, tell me an engineer that doesn't have an old car. They don't drive new cars. So this concept should be fairly familiar.
That's right. That's right.
So one thing that we're looking at is, if we can identify that obsolescence, can we take one unit out the market and create a bank of these parts, and then start to look at how we could digitally twin those parts and keep those parts being able to be produced in the market? Because I think we're a bit of a way off. We're probably about 7 years away for the 3D printing to be at the capacity that it needs to be at. But can we at least, now we have a view on this, can we start to take those parts in preparation for the fact that supply will be an issue, in the future, because there won't be as many of those machines and the demand won't be there, or the manufacturers might go bust, or
it's really interesting. I wrote about a place down in Wichita that's doing digital twinning of old airframes for like the Black Hawk helicopter.
Wow.
And so they're literally disassembling actual helicopters and fighters and getting a digital twin of each part so that they can identify, and it may be 3D printing in some cases, but like you said, it's not quite there yet. So even just legacy machining or other manufacturing methods to be able to have these parts going into the future as these 30, 40, 50-year-old airframes continue to fly.
If you've got the drawings and you've got that digital twin, you can do a lot with it. Like you said, it doesn't have to be 3D printed. It could be machine tooled.
Right. And one thing I learned along the way is even legacy machining now, you have to have a 3D rendering.
Yeah.
So even having the old 2D drawings doesn't get you there anymore.
No, and
so that's really cool.
It's also that skills set where you would have a lathe and make everything from sight and precision, and it's not there. It's because digitalization is taken over.
It's all computerized.
So, they just stick it on there and stick the file in, and it does it for them.
Amazing.
It's
that's real cool.
Yeah,
so you've got other awesome things coming down. We'll have to talk again when you get some of this other stuff rolling.
I will talk to you whenever you like whenever we've got stuff going on. 100%, no issues. And we have to we have to get this travel thing out of the way, and we can start to get over, so that's the next step. But lots of things happening. We're getting money in and it's going to expand, and we want more customers, we want more stock. We want a varied range of customers as well. And we kind of want to be that go-to company. There's also stuff where we see ourselves as a bit of a go-between as well, because a lot of the groups might buy through SAP. They might buy through other networks, which are quite prohibitory for small suppliers to be on, which means that they miss out. So we're kind of on the side of manufacturers, and we're kind of saying, come with us. What we can do is build that bridge so you don't miss out, but you can come with us and you can also get onto there as well. So we want to be a force for good. We want to help trade, help things move along, and ultimately use the data that we're able to collect and do to really make a positive impact on the planet and the people that we deal with. We should be encouraging trade. It should be recirculating products. We should be, all of this can have a great, it can be used in so many ways, and probably so many ways that I haven't even thought of yet.
That's a great point. I mean, there's so many things we've already talked about, and what else is inside that onion as you peel it back? We'll find out, right?
100%, man. And hopefully we keep having these chats, and we
can
share this journey with you at every stage. I really appreciate the platform as well. It's great that you give me the space to talk, and it's always like really free-flowing conversation as well. So it's really good.
Cool. Well, I enjoyed having you on. I'm sure the listeners are going to enjoy the discussion, and we'll get together again soon.
100%. I'm going to drop a very cheeky thing and go to marketplace.machinecompare.com if you want to have spare parts, or just go on to machinecompare.com and click on the spare parts tab. If you
Nothing cheeky about it. We talked about having the folks be able to get out there and see what it's about. So there you go, people. Go check it out. Look up Ben on LinkedIn. He's got a great background and is doing cool things. Thanks for being here.
Brilliant. I really appreciate your time, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Benoski. Watch for new episodes dropping on the first and third Tuesdays of every month.